Here I have two Atari ST PCBs. We have an Atari STE PCB that tragically lost its case in a shipping accident that turned it into dust. And then I also have a new remake board, a Phoenix H5 Rev C5B, the latest iteration of the Phoenix platform. I've already built this up. It's already working wonderfully. But I put on a little poll asking the viewership, what would you prefer me put into a new make case, a 3D printed case from PCBWay? And the feedback was overwhelmingly to put the new motherboard into that case. And that's what we're going to do today. Let's move this off to the side. The box and case has arrived. I have just sliced it open. There is a little bit of rattling inside, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some minor damage, hopefully not too much. It is very snugly in here. Let's just, yeah. Here's what we have here. Perfect. Atari ST bottom full, Atari ST top full. Now the color I chose was black. Not exactly the best for showing the best surface finish. Ooh, that surface finish is really not all that great. Oh, wow. That didn't turn out very well at all. I could have probably printed this better than myself. Man, that is a rough print. Dang, that looks terrible. And it looks like we lost a stand. Yeah, lovely. Not the best. But we'll make it do. At least it's something. To be honest, for what I paid for this, this is an absolute disappointment. 100% disappointment. Greetings and welcome to the Power of Vintage. I first wanted to go over the different parts of the build that we're putting together here. As you can see, there is the 3D printed case. That's one of the main pillars of this build. We have a keyboard sourced from another Atari ST that I've had, or I don't know where I got that. I have an Atari ST keyboard here, so we have that there. So that's an original part. We have potentially a Gotek. The Gotek is incoming, but we have a Gotek with a 3D printed case. We also have a 3D printed faceplate and an Alps floppy disk drive that is for a PC that I could adapt to run with this guy. So we're going to try to do that too. Now we also have a Meanwhile PSU already been built, or I do this pretty regularly. However, it does have an original mounting bracket. Then we have the H5 Phoenix board here. And this was a part of a raffle that I announced a while back. I bought a few tickets and I ended up winning a 1030XE, or not 1030, a 130XE. And the person who actually won the H5 Phoenix board, the grand prize, didn't know what to do with it necessarily and wanted to make the trade. So we made the trade and I got the Phoenix board, he got the 130XE. And I have built this out a little differently than I've built before in the past. And so I'll go over a little bit of the differences between this H5 Phoenix board and the previous one that I reviewed, that I built, a year and a half ago, whenever it was, right? Let's dive into each of the parts individually. Okay, on the right-hand side, we have the newer version. This is the Rev C5B. On the left, we have the Rev C1, all right? What's the difference between the two? Well, not a tremendous amount. A few things specifically. There's some differences in the board itself, but then also beyond the board itself, there's some differences in how I built the boards. First off, what you see here, this is a TOS decoder. This allows for the computer to decode TOS 2.06, 2.0 and later, right? And now on this later board, that is actually baked in the circuitry of the board itself. So you don't have to even have this anymore. This is not required. All right, and another thing, there is a change in the reset button. Exos probably is not that happy because the reset button is actually different on this board than on this one. Not for the better. The mounting brackets, you had to do there's a little bit of funny business you had to do to get it to mount on this one. There's always funny things that happen. Another element here that's different. We also have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack for audio output. That actually goes well with a VGA connector. Now you could put a VGA connector on the older board as well. I used the original Atari ST video out. However, even though I have the VGA connector on here and it works wonderfully, I'll kind of demonstrate it working just fine as it is. I'm going to probably remove this. The nice thing about it is that it takes the place of one of these guys, right? An ST to VGA adapter. The problem is, number one, is that it removes the audio. So having the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack is excellent. But number two, what you see, I'm going to hold this up here and see all of these ports, for the most part, are really relatively flush to the board. This is not flush to the board. Now, this would require me to make some more modifications to the case in order to fit this in. Do I want to do that? Do I not want to do it? I'm thinking about desoldering this and putting in the Atari ST style video, because also what you don't get with this, with the VGA video out, is you can't connect it to an original Atari ST monitor. Now, not everyone wants to do that, but I do have them and I do like them. And I do have the adapters all over the place anyways around my house, so I can adapt to VGA anytime I want. I'm still a little bit up in the air on that. Oh, the last thing, that's actually quite a bit different between this and the old board. We have a DC 5-volt in power adapter. So you don't even have to actually, all you have to do is drill a hole in the case and you can get an outlet or just plug in a nice little DC barrel jack into there and you get your power for your Phoenix H5 board. All right, so differences between them, fairly similar to each other. Not a lot of newness between the two, but still cool nonetheless. Everything's all plugged in, good to go. Keyboard's flipped right side up. We're good to go. Power on. Ultima IV test. And there we go. We passed the Ultima IV test. And it's working. All right, here we have the 3D printed case. And this is an STL file that's been used by a few others in the community. However, and I don't have a printer large enough to print this in the two single pieces, right? The top and bottom case. I got this printed by PCBWay, and I am very disappointed, and I'll show the unboxing of this, with the quality of the 3D print. It's very rough. Maybe it looks worse, or maybe it looks better on this black, but the surface finish is poor, but in large part due to the layer height that was used is just really, really coarse and thick. That's one element there. I also think that they are running it too hot, and you'll see that it's at a lot of the corner areas where the surface got melted. Smaller pieces here. Then if you look at any of the standoffs, pillars, whatever you want to call these things, and hopefully try to get a good focus in, and you can see how jagged and poor that print quality is. And then this piece here, I did glue this back on. Hopefully it doesn't break off again. It was broken in shipping. So in general, not the biggest fan of the surface quality and the finish of this. Now, I have tried to sneak the new motherboard in this case, and there's a couple things that are hindering it. There seems to be something blocking it over on this side here from getting in fully. Additionally, the monitor output, the video output here, because the VGA connector goes beyond the board here. This is, even though this can stick through just fine, this is too wide for that opening and does not poke through all the way. So another reason why I'm thinking I'm going to remove the VGA port and put an Atari ST video port on there. All right, I just can't get it to fit in here, and I'll just kind of show you this right now. So try to get this locked in place, and yeah, as you can see I'm binding up here, but because of that I'm also binding up over here as well. So there needs to be some adjustments made here, and probably in the case here I may have to Dremel out a little bit of that surface there and give a little more room back in this far corner. All right, and perhaps other places as well in order to get this fit, but this is where it looks like it's binding up a little bit over here and binding up there. So those are some parts of the case itself. I could go with a hard drive solution in this computer, but I thought it might be interesting to try to look at taking an existing floppy drive that was a PC floppy drive and adapting it to fit for the Atari ST. Now, obviously the color is kind of funky. I can always print a different color in the future, but the idea is to be able to put this front fascia on, and this will fit perfectly in place in the case. Yeah, the surface finish kind of sucks. I may have to do some kind of tweaking with this as well to adapt this opening to fit properly. But the nice thing is part of me wanting to test this out is the long button floppy drives are harder and harder to come by, and I think they're a little more problematic to work with, troublesome. I have more failure issues than with later drives. And this could be a nice solution to work with those Atari STs that have the long button floppy drives. This is put together or designed by Thomas, I think based in Austria. Nice guy. He sent it to me a little while back and I wanted to try it out. So we're going to try this out, see how it goes. So one of the modifications to get this floppy drive to work or convert it from a PC to an Atari is to take this pad, this jumper pad here, which is DS1, that's jumper together, and jumper together DS0 instead. So what we need to do is we just need to remove that solder there, add a little blob there, and we're good to go. Okay. Let's add a little bit of flux to make it a little easier on the DS0 side. There we go. DS0 set to go. All right. With that swapped over to DS1, or from DS1 to DS0, it's time to connect it to the Atari ST. Now you can't simply just attach it directly. You have to flip the floppy cable over because the pin 1 versus the pin 1 is different on the Atari ST versus Atari ST floppy drives versus PC floppy drives. All right, power is in. Let's take this floppy drive, do the Ultima test to it. And let's power on. Sounds good. Looks good for the most part. Oh, that's weird. That is some weird artifacting. Something's going on. The next part to mod is the floppy drive faceplate, fascia, whatever you want to call it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pry off this top part here. So we'll pivot it up like so. And there we go. This floppy drive looks gorgeous. All right, now we see down here where the faceplate is in place. Oh, there we go. I did. And it's off. Perfect. Now, I do believe, yes, that this floppy button does need to be removed. So, let's take a look. How is that in place? Because effectively what this does, this mechanism does, is it pushes on a little metal hook there. So we don't need a button to push through to the front. So what it looks like is that there are little hooks. I need to pop that out on both sides, and then it should just slide up and off, I think. Yeah, there it did. Now for the bone part. And I may have to do this the second time if I change the color of the faceplate. But the nice thing is I've done it once. It should be relatively simple to do again. So let's line up where these notches go over those little sheet metal tabs. Trying to do this while filming at the same time is not exactly the easiest thing. In the right place, I'm close. All right, I am going to go off camera for a moment to make sure that I get this in place properly. Okay, I think I have it now. It looks like it's in well enough. Let's just see how this works. In place, push the button. Nice. It's working great. Let's put the lid back on. It's a great build and works nicely. That button is actually very clever. I like that. Perfect. And the floppy drive is done. Okay, so what we're going to do is I have a donor board here with an Atari ST video out right here. And what we're going to do first is add a little solder to the existing points, and then we'll use the desoldering gun to suck out all the excess solder and try to get this ready to go so I can install it into the new board. I don't care if we're creating bridges or anything like that. The intent is you just get some fresh solder here. There's a lot of solder, but that's okay. Likewise for these 2 points here. There we go. Okay. Let's see if I can get this going this way. Almost done. We'll just use a little hot air. It is wiggling all over the place. I think there's just something, little something binding it up somewhere else. Don't know exactly where it is, but the hot air will find it. All right. Time to pull the hot air out. Since this is a donor board, I'm not tremendously concerned. Oh wow, that one came out real easy. Quick. Looks good. Ready to go in the new board. Okay, we're back to the Phoenix board, and we're going to desolder this VGA connector now. I soldered it in myself, now I get to desolder it. And the solder should be very fresh. It seems mostly free. We'll just do a very gentle. Looks like we get a little bit over on that side. And this point right here, for pin number 13, looks like it has a little bit of solder in it. So we'll just add a little more solder to it and clean it out. Come on. There we go. Cleared. Now let's clean this up. Get it all wiped up, and then we can put this guy on. It took a little doing, but I was able to get in. So we're looking good here. Let's just scoot you up a little bit higher. There we are. That'll make it a little easier to film. We'll tape it in place. It's pretty solid because it was a bit of a snug fit, but doesn't hurt. I'd much rather have it stay in position than not. And as you can see, these points no longer are filled. It's the back points. Get a little solder in place. Not solder, but flux. Flux, solder, same thing, right? Not. Let's flip off that light. It looks a little better, easier to see. There we go. Much better. All around, much better. Need something with a little more thermal mass for these last two anchor points here. So before we go any further, this bottom case is slipping around a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some feet, some rubber feet to the bottom. We have 4 spots here. Again, the print is not the best, it's not the cleanest, but you know what, we're going to use it as it is, like I said earlier. There's one. It'll also just hold this more steadily on the desk or the tabletop here. I don't like things slipping around. There we go. Now that is much better. The next thing I want to do is I would like to use this with an RF shield, at least bottom shield in there. And so I have one right here. RF bottom shield with a nice little cardboard, paper, whatever you want to call it, protector. And ideally, if we can get this to fit in, it'll make it simple for everything else. And there is something that is off. Looks like most other places we were okay with the positioning of the different supports, with the exception of this one here. So let's lift this off, if I can. There we go. Fits in pretty snugly. It's actually doing pretty nicely. So this guy right here needs to go. So we'll just take a quick bit of snips. I'll zoom in on it. You can take a look at it. It's just this little standoff is misplaced in the print, or at least with this case that I have here. And that should be just fine. Maybe I'll get a little more flush. It's mostly flush. There we go. That, yeah, that's darn flush. So, come back to using this guy. And how are we fitting? We're still a little funky over here. And these are the standoffs for the floppy drive, or yeah, standoffs for the floppy drive. So something's a little out of place here. Now this is just still a little off. So we're about as far over. I did some sanding or dremeling with this side to open up this side a little bit more so things could scoot over. And the holes, the openings for the ports are lining up pretty darn good. Darn well, excuse me. We just have this issue over here. So let's pull this up. Let's try one more time. See if we can't get it to go in place. It's just a little off. These two here. And maybe, well, let's see. If I went without, how would it look, feel, fit? We're in the right place. Let's just see. Not over here. We're just not quite far enough back. And it's not just because of that VGA port. There are other parts that are not quite fitting properly. Is there something? Oh, there it is. Okay. And part of that is due to this guy that came off of another case that I tried this in. Now we'll have to find the home for this little piece. So let's try it now. Maybe that'll have fixed it. We're just a little off. Let's see. No, mountains. We're just a bit off here. Well, there's a couple things we can do. Number one, we can just remove the offending parts and then just screw it in place and say, screw it. I think I might end up doing that just because otherwise I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this in. Okay, so I modified the case. There's a few dimensions that don't seem to be quite perfect. The distance between these standoffs on this side and these standoffs on this side. So what you end up is you end up with some conflicting dimensions, especially when trying to fit through an RF shield like this. I looked for a few other all RF shields to see if there's any differences in them. I could, to be fair, this is the only bottom RF shield I could that was spare I could grab. I didn't want to take any other Atari STs apart. That said, so what did I do? Well, I trimmed the left-hand side of this, and this standoff. I did remove this guy. This is where the brass standoff goes for the floppy drive. It'll fit just fine as it stands into the motherboard. These are looking pretty good. What I will do now is let's get this situated, and we'll start by simply putting this guy in. And it looks like we're pretty well situated with all the standoffs. It fits in nice and snugly. On top of this, we will put the paper guy here. Make sure everything fits properly, that this goes on snugly. It looks good. And we top it off with the lovely board. Actually, you know what? Let's put it in the RF shielding first, then put it in the case. Things fit nicely here at the moment. Let's make sure we have the motherboard on it as well. I did remove the on the reset switch, I removed the little plastic cover, well, right here. We can always put it on once this thing's through in the case. I didn't want to break it off while trying to manipulate it too much. All right, get this all the way snug against the RF shielding in the far back. There we go. Do I need the RF shielding to go in there? No, I do not. But I do like the rigidity it provides to the motherboard. I don't like to kind of flex the motherboard too much. And that would be relatively easy to do. And we look like we are in place. This is looking pretty okay. Let me just take this one little screw here and we'll just anchor that here into this mounting hole. Come on. I just want to anchor this in place so that we're okay. Things don't slide around too much. There we go. And we're there. Perfect. All right. Let's get some of the other parts in place. Well, let's take a look at the back. Make sure that the back ports look like they line up properly. We are a little off center. As you can see, it looks like we're still a little too far to the left, or depending on which direction you're looking at it, we're not far enough towards this side. So the dremeling I didn't open up enough room on this far side. But we'll go with it as it is and see how things pan out. This is, I don't know if it's the design's fault or the 3D print's fault, because honestly, like I mentioned earlier, the tolerances of the 3D print were pretty piss poor. Okay, let's grab a few more parts here. We have the little brass locator. We have the standoffs for the floppy drive. We're using the short standoffs and then putting these little spacers on top. The spacers were part of the floppy adapter kit. All right, so we have the short brass and the long brass. We'll take the long brass here, place that there. We got the floppy drive there. Let's get the PSU here. It actually fits nicely. I am going to attach the floppy drive. That's going to be a bit of a gymnastic thing. So we'll see how it goes. Give me a second, I'll be right back. I finally found at least one screw to fit. It is not the best, but they weren't, the ones that I had previously were just not long enough. They were meant for the short or the taller drives, not the shorter drives, the half height drives. So, let me just see if they, no, there's that over. We have it tentatively in place. Let's get the power supply in. We have to flip the floppy connector again. But it is working. All right, now, where's that keyboard? Let's get the keyboard in. And then let's see if we can close the thing up. Yes, there we go. Keyboard's in place. Make sure that everything's in the right place. But I do, as much as anything else, want to get this thing at least mostly buttoned up. Ooh. Yeah, there are some floppy drive opening issues here. Let's see if I can get this working. No, I don't think so. Nope. Yeah, I can see it. It's just not going to be. Yeah, this opening right here for the floppy drive is very imprecise. We're going to have to do some, I'll do some manipulation here. Manipulation meaning cutting and opening. It would be nice if it was a nice pretty picture, but it is not. So I'll just do some cutting, opening up the spaces here so things fit nicely. Okay, there was a lot of modification needed to squeeze this thing in. We can see we got it closed. I had to open up this side of the case quite a bit. And even then, it's still not fully... It's just a terrible design. Honestly, terrible. Back. We're still a little off-center on a couple of the ports, but I'll be honest, it's close enough. Let me get that reset button. Where did it go? There we have it. This little piece right here. And we're good. Oh, you could see that? Now you can see it. There we go. All right. We have the Phoenix H5 board. We have power supply motherboard. Like I said, motherboard. Alps floppy drive. PC floppy drive in there. We have just a regular keyboard and the new case that looks like hot garbage, to be honest. The surface finish is horrendous. The layer height is just way too big. but such is life. I am able to get it to fit, and we are booting. Let's see. And we have boot screen. I'm going to dig into a little bit more as to what's going on with the floppy drive, because every time the floppy drive is accessing, oops, let's get Ultima IV in the floppy drive. Ooh, I love the way that thunks in there. The one big win here is that fascia for the floppy drive. That is primo. Thomas, thank you so very much. Fantastic idea. Or fantastic design, rather. Very clever. No LEDs on. Over here, or here, the floppy drive LED or the power LED. No case label. These are things that, you know, would be nice at some point to have on a new case. I would love to have a nice injection molding case, but those kinds of things, they seem to go to the Amiga folks. And here we are. Return to view. There we go. The a lot brand new Atari ST. Running Ultima IV. Working just fine. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.